Sunday mornings in the Harper house were usually sacred. No alarms, no emails, no client calls, just me, a half-full coffee mug, and the quiet hum of a house not yet awake. With Katie gone on another business trip, this time to New York, I was enjoying the peace. Our daughter Haley was at her grandparents' for the weekend, which meant the house was unusually still. I had the whole day to myself. The plan was straightforward: find and print a permission slip for Haley's upcoming school trip. Easy enough. I figured it would be buried in one of Katie's folders. She handled most of the school paperwork. So I grabbed her personal laptop from the kitchen counter and opened it up. She had mentioned saving the form on her desktop, and I didn't think twice about using her computer. That's how normal things still felt. Until I saw the Open tab. At first, I didn't process what I was looking at. It was a chat window, maybe from Slack or some other app she used for work. I hovered my hand over the trackpad to close it when something caught my eye. A string of messages, half a sentence really, but enough to change everything. Still thinking about last night, your skin, the way you. I scrolled up. The conversation wasn't short. And it wasn't professional. The messages were in asterisk mate. Way to and asterisk mate. The sender's name read, Ben Holland. That name didn't ring any bells. Not a coworker I'd heard of. Not a family friend. Definitely not someone Katie had ever mentioned in passing. And the more I read, the colder my skin became. Barely made it back to the room without jumping each other. I keep replaying the way you kissed me in the elevator. Let's meet again in Seattle next month. Same sweet. Ryan still believes these are business trips, right? There it was. My name like a punch to the gut. I slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. I wasn't supposed to see that. And yet, how could I not? I sat at the dining table for a full 10 minutes, staring at the surface like it might give me answers. What had I just walked into? I wanted to believe there was an explanation. That it was a prank. A misunderstanding. Something. Anything but what it looked like. Because what it looked like was that my wife of 11 years had been living a double life right under my nose. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't even breathe properly for the rest of that day. I paced the house, trying to recall moments where something had felt off, trying to convince myself I was wrong. But the conversation was burned into my memory now. The in asterisk Macy. The confidence. The way they spoke like I was an obstacle, not a person. Not her husband. 2 days later, Katie returned from New York. She walked through the door, smiling like nothing had changed. I was in the living room, waiting, laptop already back in its place. I'd rehearsed what I was going to say a dozen times, but when I saw her, my wife, the mother of my child, I hesitated. For a moment, I wondered if I'd imagined it all. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I watched. Her demeanor. Her expression. She dropped her bag, kissed my cheek casually, and asked if I'd fed the cat. Later that evening, as we sat on the couch watching TV, I finally asked, "Hey, who's Ben Holland?" She froze. It was subtle, just a split second, but I caught it. The kind of pause that someone makes when they're scrambling for a version of the truth that sounds believable. "Oh, Ben," she said, reaching for her glass of wine. "He's an old friend from law school. Haven't talked to him in forever." I didn't reply. I just nodded slowly. Waited. She glanced at me, probably sensing something in my silence. "Why?" "I saw some messages," I said calmly. "On your laptop." It was open. Her smile tightened. "You were going through my computer?" "I was looking for Haley's field trip form," I said. It was just already open. Her demeanor changed instantly, like a switch flipped. She set the wine down. "Well, if you're going to invade my privacy, at least ask first." "That's not okay, Ryan." I blinked. That was her move? She was flipping this on me? "You left a window open," I said. "I didn't go looking for anything. But what I saw, it didn't look like just a law school friend." Katie exhaled slowly. Then came the practiced calm, the one she used when Haley threw a tantrum or when a client tried to pull a fast one in court. "Ben jokes around," she said. "He always has. Those messages, it's just his sense of humor. Crude. You know how lawyers talk when they're venting." I kept my face still. "And besides," she added, "you don't think I'd be dumb enough to cheat on you using my personal laptop? That's ridiculous. Don't you trust me?" That last question stung because once upon a time, the answer would have been yes. I said nothing. What was the point? She had rehearsed this. I could tell. The measured tone, the misdirection, the calculated indignation. She leaned closer. "Ryan, you're my husband. You really think I'd throw away everything we've built? For what? A fling with some guy from law school I haven't seen in years." I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But something had shifted. Not just in our marriage, in me. It wasn't just what she said. It was how easily she said it. Like this wasn't her first time putting out this kind of fire. She kissed my cheek again and went upstairs to shower. Left me there with my doubts and a hollow feeling I couldn't shake. That night, I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her soft breathing. She fell asleep quickly, like someone with nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, I was wide awake, wondering how long I'd been sleeping beside a stranger. I thought about the messages again. The ease with which they talked about me, about us, like I was some outdated piece of furniture in the way of their plans. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't sarcasm. That was intent. And even though I didn't say another word that night, I knew things would never be the same. I didn't trust her explanation. I didn't believe the Ben story. But I wasn't going to fight about it. Not yet. Something in me had shifted, something permanent. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a man with questions. And from that moment on, I was going to find answers, with or without her help. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay in bed beside Katie, her back turned to me, rising and falling with each breath, while my eyes stared blankly into the darkness. My mind was a reel of fragmented memories. Flashes of moments I'd once dismissed, now replaying with new meaning, new weight. It was like my brain had finally been allowed to start putting the puzzle together, and the picture that was forming didn't look anything like the marriage I thought I knew. First came the trips. Katie had always been ambitious. Even back when we were just dating, she talked about climbing the legal ladder, about breaking into corporate law and making a name for herself. I supported her, of course I did. When the trip started, I chalked it up to professional growth. Boston, Chicago, LA, quick turnarounds, always work-related, always important. She'd come home with stories about intense negotiations, last-minute filings, quirky clients. I never questioned it. But now I remembered how her trips had become more frequent. How she'd started flying out almost every other week, sometimes with just a day's notice. I remembered one trip in particular to Seattle. She had seemed especially giddy packing for that one. I even joked about how she seemed more excited than usual to spend 3 days arguing over contracts. She'd laughed, kissed me, and said, "It's just nice to get out of town sometimes. You should take a trip of your own." That line stuck with me now. The way she'd said it, too eager. Like she was trying to plant the idea, like she wanted me gone. And there were other things. Smaller things. But now they screamed. Like the phone. Katie used to leave her phone charging on the kitchen counter overnight. It would buzz now and then, usually messages from group chats with her sisters or work alerts. But sometime last year, that changed. Her phone started living with her like a permanent appendage. Even when she was home, it stayed face down, muted. I remember once asking why, and she shrugged it off. "Just tired of the noise," she'd said. The thing was, her notifications were never that noisy. Not until she started hiding them. Then there were the jewelry changes. Katie had always kept her style simple. She wore the same necklace every day for years. A silver locket her mom gave her after Haley was born. Then suddenly new pieces started appearing. A gold chain, delicate earrings, a bracelet I hadn't seen before. "Got them on sale," she'd said. Figured it was time for a refresh. I nodded, not thinking twice. But looking back, there was a pattern. The new accessories always showed up right after a trip. Same with her wardrobe. Katie had started dressing sharper. More designer labels, more fitted silhouettes. When I asked, she told me she was just upgrading her brand for client impressions. But I remembered how she'd stopped asking me for feedback. She used to come out of the bedroom in new outfits, spinning for me, waiting for compliments. That stopped months ago. And her calendar, we used to share one. Not in a formal way, just a Google Sync so we wouldn't double-book family stuff. But a few months back, I noticed I couldn't see her events anymore. "Must be a bug," she'd said. "I'll fix it." She never did. Then came the silence. Not just with the calendar. With everything. Conversations that once flowed so easily between us had become one-sided. She used to tell me everything. From gossip at the firm to funny things Haley said on the phone with her grandparents. Now she was either too tired to talk or too distracted. Her eyes always seemed far away, like she was living in a world I wasn't invited to. And Haley, she'd started asking questions. Why is mommy always gone? Does she not like playing board games anymore? She said not to call during her meetings, even on weekends. Those questions had broken my heart at the time, but I still defended Katie. Told Haley mommy was just working really hard because she loved us. Now I wasn't so sure. I also couldn't stop thinking about that one night, the night her flight was supposedly delayed. She texted from the gate saying the plane was grounded for mechanical issues. She even sent a photo of herself in front of what looked like an airport terminal. But something hadn't felt right then either. Her tone was weird, overly apologetic. And the photo, now that I remembered, had no timestamp, no flight number in sight. I decided to check the airline's site out of curiosity. That specific flight had taken off on time. When I confronted her back then, she got defensive fast. Are you tracking my flights now? She said, laughing. God, Ryan, you're starting to sound paranoid. I let it go. Told myself I was overthinking it. Now I knew better. All these things, once isolated, brushed off, were now connected like blinking lights in the dark. Her late nights, her silence, her secretive habits, they weren't coincidences. They were a breadcrumb trail. And I'd ignored them. By the time dawn crept into our bedroom, I still hadn't slept. Katie stirred beside me, rolling over with a sigh, her hand brushing my shoulder like nothing was wrong. Like I wasn't crumbling inside. I got up quietly, careful not to wake her, and made my way downstairs. The house felt too still, too clean. Like it had been scrubbed of truth. In the kitchen, I poured myself coffee and opened my laptop. Not Katie's, mine? I wasn't going to go through her stuff again. Not yet. But I had questions now, and I wasn't going to let them sit unanswered. I opened a blank document and began typing out every moment I could recall that felt wrong in hindsight. Every meeting that didn't add up, every late return, every excuse that had felt hollow. I created a timeline, color-coded by location and excuse. It was methodical. Cold. Something I'd usually do for a client when investigating digital threats. But this time, the threat was personal. Halfway through, I found myself staring at a line of text. Seattle trip, stayed 2 nights, firm booked only 1. No receipts. That's when I stopped typing. Because I suddenly remembered something else, a receipt I'd found in the laundry a few months back. From a boutique hotel in downtown Seattle. It was crumpled, jammed into the pocket of a blazer I hadn't seen her wear before. I'd assumed it was from the firm. But now? Now it felt like a clue. I went to the bedroom closet, digging through her jackets. The blazer was still there. Still hanging. I reached into the pocket. Empty. Of course it was. I stood there, blazer in hand, feeling the weight of denial finally give way. My heart beat so loudly in my chest I thought I might collapse. Katie was cheating on me. I didn't have full proof, not yet. But I had enough pieces to see the shape of what was happening. And now that I'd started looking, I knew I wasn't going to stop. By Monday morning, I couldn't function. I went through the motions, dressed, got Haley ready, packed her lunch, but it all felt mechanical. My thoughts were somewhere else, scattered across late-night hotel check-ins, hidden messages, and the sickeningly casual way Katie had dismissed my questions. The more I tried to shake it, the more it consumed me. I wasn't just dealing with a betrayal. I was trying to accept that the woman I'd loved for over a decade, the woman I'd built a life with, might have been lying to me for months. Or longer. I couldn't live in the unknown anymore. I needed certainty. That afternoon, during my lunch break, I made a call I never thought I'd make. I contacted a private investigator. His name was Eric Dalton. Ex-cop, quiet voice, didn't ask unnecessary questions. When I explained the situation, he didn't flinch. Told me he'd seen 1,000 of these, and most of them ended the same way. I'll keep it discreet, he said. Just give me a few days. It took 2 days. That was all it took for him to break open the world I thought I knew. Thursday morning, I met him in a small diner on the edge of town, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and old coffee pots that never emptied. Eric slid into the booth across from me, placed a manila envelope on the table, and didn't say a word. I didn't open it right away. Just stared at it. The air between us was heavy. They've been meeting regularly, he said finally. Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. Always under different aliases. Your wife uses a travel rewards card tied to a second email account. That's how she books. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the envelope. Photos. Dozens of them. Printed in glossy 4x6 like someone wanted to preserve the memory. In every *T, Katie looked relaxed, even radiant. She was with a man tall, tanned, mid-40s, expensive coat, expensive watch. A plastic surgeon, Eric said. Ben Holland. I'd never seen him before, but he was unmistakably the same Ben from the chat window on her laptop. One photo stopped me cold. Katie was stepping out of a black SUV in front of a luxury hotel in downtown Seattle, suitcase in hand. Ben opened the door for her, his hand resting lightly on her back as she laughed at something he said. They looked comfortable. Like this was normal. Like it wasn't a betrayal of everything she and I had built. Another photo, the two of them walking into the hotel lobby, hand in hand. No disguises. No hesitation. They weren't hiding, not from each other, anyway. And then the worst one, a parking garage, the two of them in a tight embrace beside a silver Tesla. His hand on her waist. Her arms around his neck. Lips nearly touching. I stared at the picture for a long time. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because it was undeniable. Irrefutable. I had proof now. Cold, clear, heart-shattering proof. Eric was still talking. His history isn't clean, he said. No current spouse. Divorced twice. Rumors of workplace affairs. Known to date married women. Very careful until now. How long? I asked, my voice a rasp. Best guess? At least 9 months. The hotel visits go back that far. Phone records suggest regular contact even longer. 9 months. That was almost a year. Nearly Haley's entire kindergarten year. That meant this wasn't just a lapse in judgment. This wasn't one mistake. It was a second life. A parallel relationship she'd managed to run in tandem with ours with me without slipping. Or at least, without getting caught. I stuffed the photos back into the envelope, my hands cold despite the heat in the diner. I need copies, I said. All of it. Digital and print. You'll have them tonight, Eric replied. When I got home that evening, Katie was in the kitchen, barefoot, humming softly as she chopped vegetables. She smiled at me like nothing was wrong. Hey, you're home early, she said. Haley's playing in the living room. I nodded, walked past her, and went straight to her bedroom. My heart was pounding, but my face stayed neutral. I couldn't let her see it, not yet. I wasn't ready for a confrontation. Not without a plan. Instead, I locked the bedroom door, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened the digital files Eric had sent. I went through them one by one. The photos. The travel bookings. The metadata from messages she'd sent to a dummy email linked to Ben. She had used a second phone. A burner. Eric found proof of it through location pings and a payment to an obscure carrier. It wasn't always active, but when it was within feet of Ben's address. The timestamps matched her client dinners to the minute. I pulled up our shared calendar. Cross-referenced her court depositions with hotel check-ins. Every time she said she was in mediation, she wasn't. My fingers hovered over my phone. I wanted to call her. To walk into the kitchen and ask calmly how she managed to lie so convincingly for nearly a year. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I printed everything. I needed to see it on paper. I needed to lay it out like evidence in a trial, which, in a way, it was. A trial of trust. One she had failed. Later that night, after Haley had gone to bed, Katie came into our room. She looked tired. Work tired. Or maybe guilt tired. Long day, she muttered, pulling off her heels. I've got a deposition at 9 tomorrow. Can you handle drop-off? I nodded again. Said nothing. She didn't notice. As she slipped into bed beside me, I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the woman lying inches away. How well did I really know her anymore? Was the Katie I'd married still in there, or had she disappeared the moment Ben Holland entered the picture? I wondered what she told him. What she called me when she talked about her home life. Did she describe me as boring? Controlling? Clueless? Did she tell him about Haley? Or did she keep that part of her life compartmentalized, like a messy drawer she didn't want to open? My heart ached for answers, but I knew one thing already: Katie had built a new life. Carefully. Strategically. She hadn't just cheated. She'd constructed an entire alternate reality. And now, I was living in the wreckage of both. After the photos, the timeline, and the second phone, I thought I'd reached the limit of how much betrayal I could absorb. I thought I had already lost everything that could be lost. Then Katie involved Haley. It started small. She began taking Haley to her parents' house almost every weekend. She framed it as quality time with Nana and Pop, and on the surface it made sense. Haley loved it there. Big yard, cookies for dinner, a shelf of movies that hadn't been updated since 2003. She always came back smiling. But one Monday morning something changed. I was brushing Haley's hair before school when I noticed her wince. What's wrong, Bug? She reached up to touch her shoulder. It hurts a little. I moved her shirt slightly and froze. There, just below the neckline, was a bruise, faint, yellowish, healing, but unmistakable. I asked what happened. She hesitated. I fell. Where? At Nana's. Were you running? She nodded too quickly. On the porch. I tripped. It didn't sit right. Kids fall all the time, sure. but the shape of the bruise was odd, more linear than a fall would suggest. I snapped a quick photo with my phone and let it go for the moment. I didn't want to scare her, but something about her tone, rehearsed, unnatural, bothered me all day. That evening, I asked Katie about it. Her response came fast, polished. "Oh yeah, she took a tumble on the steps. Nothing serious." My mom said she barely cried. Her smile was too tight. Her eyes didn't match the lightness in her voice. I let it go outwardly, but something was building inside me, a pressure I couldn't yet name. A few days later, my friend Max, a pediatric nurse, came by for a beer. I showed him the photo, not giving context. Just asked, "What do you make of this?" He studied it for a few seconds, then gave me a look. "This isn't from a fall. Not unless she fell on something narrow. Maybe a stair edge, but even then, the pattern's off. You worried about something?" I lied and said no. Just curiosity. But my heart was pounding. I was starting to suspect something I didn't even want to say out loud. Katie wasn't just cheating. She was manipulating the narrative. That weekend, I paid more attention. Katie and Haley came back from the grandparents' Sunday evening. I watched them from the window as they walked up the driveway. Katie carried all the bags, hair tied back, sunglasses still on even though it was nearly dark. Haley trailed behind her, quiet. At dinner, Katie talked about the lovely time they'd had. But Haley was withdrawn, pushing peas around her plate. Not sulking, just muted. Later that night, as I tucked her in, she whispered something that nearly stopped my heart. "Mommy said I have to act scared sometimes." My hand froze in her blanket. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" She looked up at me, wide-eyed, innocent. "She said to act nervous if people ask. And to say you yell a lot." "But you don't, Daddy. You never yell." I couldn't speak. I just nodded slowly, kissed her forehead, and left the room. I stood outside her door for almost 5 minutes, trying to breathe. It wasn't about the affair anymore. Katie wasn't just betraying me, she was building a case. The next morning, I went back to the folder of evidence. Added a new section, behavioral notes Haley. I recorded the exact wording Haley used. I wrote the date. I documented everything. Something had shifted in Katie's game plan. She was using our daughter as a pawn. And suddenly, things that hadn't made sense before started falling into place. A month ago, Katie mentioned wanting to reassess our custody agreement casually over coffee as if it were just a paperwork refresh. Another time, she asked me to sign a release form for Haley's daycare, authorizing solo pickup and new emergency contacts. I didn't think much of it then, we were both on the list anyway. Now I saw it differently. She was setting the stage, establishing a pattern, rewriting the story of our marriage in slow motion, one document, one conversation, one fall at a time. I needed proof. I started recording. That week, I bought 2 small audio recorders, discreet ones, no bigger than a flash drive. I placed one in the center console of Katie's car. The other, I embedded inside a decorative bowl in the hallway by the front door, a place where she often took calls when she thought no one was listening. I wasn't proud of it. But this wasn't about pride. It was about survival and protecting my daughter. The first few days, the recordings were mundane. Calls with clients, voice notes to herself about grocery lists. But on Thursday afternoon, the hallway recorder picked up something chilling. Katie was on the phone with someone. A man, the voice was deep, confident, smug. "Ben, he's not going to fight. He's too passive. And if we keep pushing the emotional abuse angle, the court will lean in my favor." A pause. Then again, "What about the bruises?" "Katie, already documented. My mom took photos. All we need is one more incident, something small. Maybe Haley says he scared her. That'll tip it." I felt sick. It wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just lies. It was a setup. They were building a legal case to paint me as unstable, unfit. They were using my child's injuries, real or staged, to manufacture fear. To manipulate a custody battle that hadn't even started yet. I sat in my office that night, headphones in, replaying the audio until I could quote it word for word. My fists clenched. My teeth hurt from how hard I was grinding them. But I didn't rage. I didn't storm into the bedroom and confront her. Instead, I copied the file, saved it to a secure drive, dated it, labeled it hallway _her custody setup _her audio 1. And I realized something else. This was no longer a marriage. It was a war. I had been ambushed, outmaneuvered, but not broken. Not yet. So I started planning countermeasures. By the end of that week, the question wasn't whether Katie was trying to set me up. It was how far she was willing to go. The recordings were clear. This wasn't impulsive cheating or a rash decision. It was a coordinated, deliberate plan. So I shifted my role. No longer husband. No longer betrayed partner. Now I was the quiet counterweight to her scheme. I started with her devices. Katie wasn't tech-savvy. She reused passwords, synced her email across platforms, and rarely updated her apps. With a small piece of software, I mirrored her laptop activity onto a secure drive. Nothing invasive, just screen recordings, file access logs, and email metadata. It was all legal within our shared network, and I needed it. What I found made everything worse. Katie had a spreadsheet. It was buried deep in her legal work folder, disguised with a bland file name, Q3familyassets_review.docs. But when I opened it, the mask came off. It was a 5-tab tracker, meticulously organized. Each tab was titled with chilling precision: custody narratives, emotional tension, injury log, legal strategies, insurance discussions. I read through each cell, stunned. Under custody narratives, she had notes like, Haley said Ryan yells when tired. Reinforce this in future conversations. Note: record, overheard, fight for therapist visit. Ask pediatrician about trauma indicators. Under emotional tension, look into neighbor's camera. If fight recorded, use tone/volume to reinforce instability. Leave journal entry visible. Reference fear, conflict. But it was the insurance discussions that made my skin crawl. There were bullet points, followed by question marks. Check if life insurance payout valid if death ruled accidental. Beneficiary update. Can this be done without notifying Ryan? Ben suggested policy check. Consult quietly. I stared at the screen for minutes. Reading, rereading. My pulse in my ears. Was this real? Was I imagining it? It was all in her language. Her voice in the phrasing. Cold. Clinical. Ben's name showed up repeatedly, always tied to strategic advice or asset division. He wasn't just a side fling. He was a collaborator. And Katie, the woman I once held during panic attacks, the mother of our child, was plotting a future where I didn't exist. Or at the very least, had no voice. That night, I installed a keylogger and another layer of software on her phone while she was in the shower. It mirrored text messages, locations, even brief call summaries. I didn't feel like a villain. I felt like a father protecting his daughter from her own mother. Within 2 days, I had transcripts. Dozens of them. Ben and Katie communicated constantly. But what struck me wasn't the romance, it was the strategy. Ben. Therapist should document Haley's behavioral shifts, even if minor. Katie. Scheduling soon. Told her to say she misses the old daddy when prompted. Ben. Perfect. Frame change as regression. Judges eat that up. I forwarded the transcripts to a private server. Created a timeline. Dated *TS. Everything labeled, cross-referenced, watermarked. I still hadn't confronted her, and the restraint nearly tore me apart. But I had to be smarter than her. I had to let her believe she was winning. That weekend, she staged another fall. I knew it the moment Haley came back with a fresh bruise on her arm, just below the elbow. Katie walked in first, holding a small bag of groceries. Careful, babe. Haley tripped again this morning. I played dumb. Where? Outside my parents' garage, she said, all casual. She caught her sleeve on the latch, bumped into the frame. Later that night, the audio recorder in her car confirmed everything. Ben, new bruise. Katie, yeah, told her to say garage latch. It's subtle but enough for photos. Ben, great. Keep narrative soft. Too aggressive and it backfires. I saved the clip, timestamped it. I was done waiting. That Monday I made 3 moves. First, I contacted a family law attorney. Her name was Lena Barrett, a specialist in custody manipulation and parental alienation cases. I didn't show her the whole picture yet. Just a taste, the chat transcript, the car recording, the spreadsheet screenshot *T. She leaned back in her chair after reading, eyes wide. You need to notify CPS, she said. Not just for your daughter, for your own protection. They'll *P***nize the system against you otherwise. Second, I filed a request to review the current custody arrangement under the pretense of concerns about behavioral inconsistencies. It would trigger a mediation session and documentation. Third, I relocated Haley. Temporarily. With Lena's guidance, I had her stay with my sister 3 towns over, a safe, calm space. We framed it as a weekend visit, but I told Katie I'd be keeping Haley through the week to give her some peace before her birthday. Katie didn't object, not openly. But that night, she made 3 phone calls from her car, each more agitated than the last. One to her mother. One to Ben. One to someone I didn't recognize. She said the same phrase each time, "We're ahead of schedule." That confirmed it. They were getting ready to strike. The next day, she scheduled a pediatric appointment. Said it was just a checkup but didn't invite me. Claimed the doctor's office had limited slots and she didn't want to crowd the room. I knew better. She was going to make it official, lodge the first formal complaint. But she never made it. The moment she pulled into the clinic parking lot, 2 CPS officers and a plainclothes officer were waiting. I'd filed the audio and transcripts the night before under advisement from Lena. I submitted photos, phone data, and a sworn affidavit explaining my concerns. They didn't arrest Katie. Not yet. But they questioned her. They separated her from Haley, conducted a preliminary interview, and asked for consent to search her phone. She refused. That refusal raised flags. Ben, meanwhile, was less lucky. The investigation into his medical practice, unrelated to our situation, had been quietly escalating for months. The DEA had been sniffing around his prescribing habits. I found his name on a public database of flagged providers. Lena made 1 call to a federal contact. Within 48 hours, Ben was served a warrant unrelated to me and temporarily suspended from practice. Katie didn't know it yet, but the walls were closing in on all sides. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was dismantling her plan from the inside out. Piece by piece. Katie's house of cards didn't fall all at once. It collapsed in slow motion, piece by piece, as every lie she'd planted came back to choke her plan. The pediatric appointment never happened. After the CPS stop, Katie returned home furious, slamming doors, pacing the kitchen in circles. She accused me of sabotage, of manipulating the system, ironic considering the surveillance I had on record. I didn't engage. I didn't even raise my voice. Instead, I handed her a small envelope, one she didn't expect. Inside were printed copies of her spreadsheet. The one where she outlined how to frame me, where she tracked injury photos and custody talking points. Her face drained of color as she read the headers. "I don't know what this is," she said quietly. "You know exactly what it is," I replied. "And so do they." She looked up at me, eyes wide. "I gave it to CPS," I said. "And to my attorney. You should start preparing." The next day, while she was out, I copied the contents of her laptop, not just the spreadsheet, but emails, drafts, even unsent messages to Ben where she detailed next steps. The files were raw, unfiltered. They painted her in full color, not a desperate wife, but a calculating strategist. Within 72 hours, everything spiraled. Katie was placed under formal review by the Bar Association. One of her clients had complained about her erratic behavior, and CPS flagged her during their custody assessment. Word traveled quickly. She was suspended from active legal practice pending investigation. Ben, meanwhile, was already under fire. His license was revoked temporarily, and as new charges surfaced related to prescription fraud, his connection to Katie became part of the public record. Suddenly, her romantic partner was also a discredited doctor. Everything she built, every lie, every fake bruise, every whispered accusation crumbled under its own weight. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. I was granted temporary sole custody of Haley, then full guardianship after the court reviewed the evidence. Katie was allowed supervised visitation twice a month under observation. She didn't fight it. She couldn't. I moved Haley and me to a new city, far enough from the past but close enough for family. My consulting firm, which I had built slowly over the years, expanded as I poured my energy into work and healing. We found peace in routine, school drop-offs, weekend pancakes, quiet evenings with storybooks and puzzles. Haley adapted faster than I expected. Kids are resilient like that. She still asked about her mom sometimes, but I answered gently, honestly. I never poisoned her mind, I didn't have to. The truth spoke for itself. Katie's trial was pending. Her reputation was gone. Ben's license was formally revoked. They stopped contacting each other soon after the fallout. What they built had no foundation, just shared delusion and deceit. As for me, I stopped checking over my shoulder. I stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. Our home was quiet again. Not empty. Peaceful. And this time I knew exactly what to protect and how far I was willing to go to do it.